the morning I walked outside and saw a bright red sold sign stuck in my front lawn, with total strangers walking through my lake cabin like they already owned it. I honestly thought I was dreaming or having a stroke, like this couldn't actually be real life, right? But then I saw her, the HOA president with the perfect little bob and that customer service smile, standing in my driveway telling these people, "We're just doing the final walkthrough before transfer." And in that second, something in me just snapped, because that's when I realized she hadn't just tried to fine me or embarrass me in front of the neighbors. She had actually tried to steal my home and sell it out from under me while I was gone. And I'm telling you right now, if you've got an HOA bully in your life, listen close, because this is how we got from "your grass is too long" to "ma'am, I'm going to need you to stop talking and show me your ID." My name is Daniel Cole. I have a little 2-bedroom cabin on Maple Ridge Shores up in upstate New York. It's not some luxury lake house. It's just wood paneling, a coffee mug I've had forever, and the same old dock my dad built back when people around here actually respected each other. And I swear to you, for years, this place was peace. You mow, you pay dues, you wave to the retired couple walking their dog, and you mind your own business. That was it. That was the code. And then Bill, the old HOA guy, good man, didn't bother anyone, passed away, and she took over. Her name is Karen Sutherland. And listen, I know Karen is already a joke on the internet, but this one is not a joke. This one is serious. This one runs on power control. And the sound of her own voice, she shows up like she's corporate legal counsel, and God rolled together clipboard under her arm like it's a weapon. Lip gloss sharp enough to cut glass. Talking about community standards like we were all auditioning for a magazine spread. And at first I thought, okay, fine, new president, new energy, whatever. But then the papers started. She wrote this 60-something page rule packet called Maple Ridge Shores, Quality of Life Covenant. And when I say rules, I mean rules. Like we suddenly had approved kayak colors. I'm serious. Only muted lake tones allowed, whatever that means. And mandatory attendance at these community engagement events, which is just her hosting potlucks and pretending she's mayor. And she actually wrote a rule about how hammocks can't sag too low because visual fatigue sends the wrong message to potential buyers. And I'm laughing like this has to be satire. Right? This is a parody until the Tuesday morning she banged on my door at 6:15 a.m. with an actual metal ruler in her hand, like she was doing a police raid on my lawn. I opened the door, half-awake, t-shirt from the night before, and she goes, "Oh, hello, no, good morning, just Mr. Cole. I'm documenting several violations. Your grass is 4.2 inches. Community standard is 3. That's $200 per day. Effective immediately." And I'm standing there like Karen. It's grass. It's alive. It grows. That's what it does. And she does that tight little smile without moving her eyes. And says, "When one property slips, property values for the entire association suffer. We all carry the burden of your choices here, like I'm an oil spill." Then she literally leans sideways and peers into my living room, like she's inspecting a crime scene, and says, "Also, your interior, as visible from the common path, appears cluttered. We'll need to schedule an inspection." And I said, real calm, "Yeah, no, you are not coming inside my house." And I try to close the door, and she wedges her clipboard in the frame and whispers, "You don't want to make this adversarial, Daniel." Right there. That's the moment I should have known what she was. But I'm going to be honest with you. At that point, I still thought she was just bored and dramatic. So I tried to keep the peace. I cut the grass. I moved the canoe so it wasn't visible from the shared path. I skipped the fight because I work a lot in the city. I come up to the cabin to breathe, not to argue. That was a mistake because people like her. When you don't push back, they don't calm down. They level up, and she leveled up fast. The citations started coming weekly, all printed in red ink and taped at eye level right on my front door, where every neighbor could see. Unapproved exterior firewood stack, non-compliant rope color on your private dock, refusal to participate in mandatory social gathering. That last one came with a $500 fine, by the way, for skipping her lakeside potluck. And it's not even really about the money at that point. It's about the humiliation. Like she was using the HOA to mark me as the trash neighbor. And yeah, that part actually got to me, because I've had this place since my dad passed, and I keep it nice. I take care of it. And now, suddenly, I'm the guy supposedly dragging down values. Then it stopped being annoying and got creepy. I was making lunch one afternoon, and I heard this nasty little buzzing outside the window, and I look up and there's a drone hovering outside my living room camera, pointed and just sitting there, recording like full-on surveillance. So I walk out on the deck, I grab a broom, and I smack that thing out of the air into the bushes. And maybe 30 seconds later, this kid, like early 20s, jogs up my steps out of breath like, "Sir, I need to retrieve HOA property. This is official documentation activity." And I block the door and go, "What documentation are you doing in my living room?" And he says, totally serious, Ms. Sutherland had reason to believe there were interior compliance issues, such as non-approved window treatments and inappropriate furniture placement visible from common areas. And I'm just staring at him, like, so now my couch is illegal, and he just goes potentially, like it's normal. Like it's nothing like filming inside my house without permission is just Tuesday. I called the sheriff, filed a report, and of course she denied everything. Said her nephew, which turns out that kid is her nephew, was doing an aerial tree health survey, and I remember sitting on my couch after that, shaking a little, and it's not rage yet. It's something else. It's violation, that feeling where you're like, I don't even feel safe inside my own walls anymore. You know that feeling like someone decided your personal space is actually theirs. 2 weeks later, she did the thing that ended her. I drove up from the city after a couple medical appointments, just wanting to sit on the dock and mind my business. And I see 2 cars in my driveway that don't belong to me. Strangers walking around my property taking pictures, like it's some open house. A real estate agent pointing at my porch steps, saying, "This place is a perfect flip, tons of modernization potential." And then I see it. A giant red sign stuck in my lawn by the mailbox that says, "For sale, sold." And my stomach dropped so hard, I actually felt dizzy for a second. Like, did I get robbed on paper while I was gone? Did the bank sell this without telling me what is happening? And then I hear her voice. "Daniel, good, you're just in time for the final walkthrough. The buyers are thrilled." She said that to me, in my own driveway, like I was late to my own eviction. I didn't yell. I didn't swing. I just looked her dead in the face and said, real calm, "That's interesting, Karen. There's only one problem. This property isn't for sale." And I pulled out my phone and I called my lawyer, Robert Hayes, and I put it on speaker. And I said, "Hey, Robert, I'm at Maple Ridge right now. I need you to bring the fraud packet and call that county investigator you mentioned. We just hit the line." And I swear to you, watching her face when I said the word fraud out loud in front of a licensed realtor and 2 witnesses was the first good feeling I'd had in weeks. See, people like her are really brave with clipboards and a lot less brave when somebody with authority shows up and asks for paperwork. Robert drove up with a folder, deed in my name, tax receipts. Photos of me actively occupying screenshots of the online listing, where she called herself authorized community representative for my property copies of this fake abandonment notice she had typed up on letterhead from something she invented called the Committee on Lakeside Preservation. Like she literally made up a government-sounding committee so she could justify taking my cabin. And he didn't come alone. He brought Detective Alicia Morrison from the county sheriff's property crimes unit. Now Detective Morrison doesn't yell. She doesn't posture. She just walks right up to Karen in my driveway. Badge on her belt, and goes, "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to explain why you're advertising a property you don't own as available for immediate sale." And Karen tries that soft, polite HOA tone. You know that voice that sounds helpful, but it's actually a threat, and goes, "There's been a misunderstanding. The association determined the structure was abandoned and reassigned for community benefit." And Morrison just shuts that down like a light switch. No, it didn't. That's not how property law works in this county. Do you have signed proof the owner surrendered title? And Karen starts laughing in this high-pitched laugh, like we're all being so dramatic right now. And she goes, "We received documentation from the Committee on Lakeside Preservation." And Morrison just goes, "I'd like to see that document." And Karen suddenly doesn't have it on her. I'm standing there, watching the whole thing like a live show, and Robert's handing over printouts and timestamps, and Morrison is flipping through every single lie. And then Morrison looks up and says, "Calm. Clear on record. Mrs. Sutherland, do you understand that impersonating a property owner and attempting to sell real property you do not own is felony fraud in this county? And I cannot explain to you how it felt to finally have someone with a badge say out loud, 'Hey, Daniel, you're not crazy. This really is happening to you.' That was the turning point. Up until then, I was playing defense, trying to avoid drama, trying to be the reasonable one. But after that, no, I went on offense. We called an emergency HOA board meeting, which Karen walked into like she was about to run court binder in her arms, chin up like she still owned everybody in that room, and she didn't realize the whole neighborhood had turned on her. My neighbor Janet gets up and tells everyone Karen fined her $300 because her grandson left a tricycle in public view. George from 2 houses over says Karen tried to make him repaint his shed because the beige you used comes off aggressive. And you could feel it, all these people who'd been scared of her, finally realizing they weren't alone. Then Robert lays out the evidence. Then Detective Morrison lays out the criminal part. And Robert goes, "We are seeking full removal of Ms. Sutherland from any position of authority reimbursement of legal costs totaling $72,000 and a restraining order preventing her from approaching Mr. Cole's property line within 500 feet." And Karen just detonates. She slams her hand on the table and starts yelling that this is persecution, that we are all ungrateful, that without her, the community will fall apart and turn into visual decay and moral collapse. And at one point, she actually pointed at me in front of everybody and said, "He sits on his porch in torn cargo shorts at 3 in the afternoon with a beer that is not the image Maple Ridge Shores is meant to project." And Robert just leans back and goes, "Sitting on your own porch in cargo shorts is not a crime, Karen. And I'm telling you, that room was done with her. They voted her out, banned her from contacting any resident in an official capacity, signed off on the restraining order, and agreed that Maple Ridge Shores would not, I repeat, would not, cover her legal bills, which means she personally was on the hook for $72 grand, plus whatever the county decided to do with the fraud case. Couple weeks later, rumor is she's drowning financially and has to unload her own house fast. And here's the part some people think is petty, and some people call justice. And I honestly want to know which side you're on, because it's complicated. Her house sits right at the narrow road that leads down to the back stretch of lakeside cabins, including mine. Which means if you control that house, you control the only easy access to that part of the water. And I'll be real with you. I made some calls, I moved some money. I had sitting anyway, and through an LLC my lawyer set up, I bought her house in cash. She didn't even know it was me until closing day. She showed up to grab her last mail, saw me standing on what used to be her porch, and I thought her soul was going to leave her body. She goes, "Daniel, you can't do this. I still need access to my aunt's cabin. There are easement laws," and I just smiled and said, "Yeah." See, funny thing about that, the old easement expired 5 years ago. Nobody renewed it back when people actually got along. So here's how this works now. Grant you a new access agreement for $5,000 a month due in advance, and if you harass anybody in this neighborhood ever again, or you so much as send a drone, that agreement is revoked. And she started shaking and said, "That's extortion." And I said, "No, extortion is when you forge documents and try to sell my house. This is just community standards." Couple days later, I put up a 10-foot cedar and steel fence along that road, full locked gate, with keypad, planted her old driveway with a koi pond, and wind chimes and benches, turned the place into a rental called Lake Peace Retreat tagline. No HOA drama. And yeah, I sit out there some mornings in the same torn fishing vest. She tried to find me for drink coffee, read my book out loud. Just loud enough that she can hear it when she's visiting her aunt. And it is very, very peaceful. So here's where I leave it. And I want you to tell me in the comments if I'm wrong or not. Because people argue with me about this part. Did I go too far, or did she not get nearly enough? Like, is it petty for me to buy her house and make her buzz a gate for access? Or is that just karma doing paperwork? Because from my side, this woman tried to take my father's cabin. Humiliate me, label me community decay, and literally sell my property while I was at a doctor's appointment. So if I decide to sit on my own porch in torn cargo shorts at 3 in the afternoon, with wind chimes singing and a koi pond on her old driveway, I kind of feel like I earned that. You know what I mean. Tell me where you're listening from, and tell me honestly, who's the problem here? Me for finishing it, or her for starting a war she couldn't win?